God. And we had this spiritual kind of theme out. It wasn't really we were physically building a temple. We had a temple of ourselves. We ourselves were the temple of God. We had the veil that we had to tear so that we can become one with God again. So we went to a more of a spiritual kind of metaphorical theme, and I thought it was a little bit complicated. Some of the kids might not get it. So one of the things I wanted to do was go with the simple theme. We went with the simple theme, and here's the theme for the next year. This year's theme will be pursuing God. Yeah, thank you. I liked it too. I liked it too. So I liked it because there's so many, that word is so beautiful. Pursuing God. I think the word pursuing is a very full word. You're actively pursuing God. And the word, I specifically put ing, pursuing. And I liked it because it's something that you're doing right now. Like if I jump, I'm jumping. If I wave, I'm waving. It's happening right now. And the thing I like is that pursuing is something we need to be constantly doing every moment of every day till our death. Till our death, we are pursuing God. And I like the theme because, it takes care of lots of things. We think about holiness. Like, some people might not care about holiness. Pursue God and holiness will be the byproduct. Like in college, they spoke to us all the time about evangelism. And I remember one day standing up during one of the meetings and I said, pursue God and evangelism will come. Once you see the nature of God, how can you but share Him? So pursue God, it will take care of lots of things. Are you not satisfied with this world? Pursue God. Are you lonely? Pursue God. Do you need meaning in your life? Pursue God, and you will find that meaning for yourself. So for this next year, our theme will be pursuing God. I'm so excited. We're going to look at different aspects of it. Who should pursue? How should I pursue? What will happen if I pursue? All those things are what we're going to be looking at for this next year. So that's just our theme for this next year. For tonight, though, we will be looking at an individual's responsibility in pursuing God. One of the things that I like is that every person must pursue God. God is not just for our pastors. God is not just for our Sunday school teachers. God is for every single person. Man, woman, child, old person, young person, everyone is involved in this. We are all a part of this. And the scary part is, though, sometimes we leave the responsibility to someone else. We look and when we don't get what we want on Sunday service, we say, oh, what a bad service today. Our Sunday school teacher didn't teach us. Pastor didn't share anything good. And we start to blame someone else for our job. We need to become our own greatest pastors. You need to become your own greatest Sunday school teacher. You have to then, and once you do that, you are then only beginning to start in your pursuit of God. We can't let this job be for someone else. It must be our own job first. But we see that it's becoming this problem of blaming someone else is a societal problem. If something goes wrong, who do we blame? We find someone else and we blame it. And I really began to see this when I became a teacher. When I became a teacher, I would teach good lessons. And I specifically remember a lesson, I taught it. It was about factoring quadratics. And I was teaching it, normally it was a Good Friday. 22 out of 23 kids were listening to me. 22 out of 23 kids got it. But there was one kid, John. And John just sits there and looks at the wall like this the whole time. And I say, John, come on, take notes. I go pat them on the back. I shake their hand. And I say, John, come on, you have to just pay attention. And John just keeps staring at the wall like this. And I said, I couldn't do anything about it, so I just taught my lesson. I got done with it. Most of them got it. I talked to John later and I said, did you get it? And he comes to me, and this is the common thing they all say. You never taught us. And I looked at them and I said, I taught you. And you can't say that though, because then they get upset and they think you're blaming them. But what I just say is, I taught you that. You just weren't listening. And what does he like to do? He likes to blame me. Why does he like to blame me? Because I'm the teacher, yes. But more than that, I think the blame is out of our hands. When you put blame on someone else, guess what? You don't have to do anything anymore. It's their job, right? If something good doesn't happen, it's their problem. It's the societal problem. Oh, it's President Obama's problem. We just like to blame someone else. Even for our actions, we like to blame someone else. Oh, that's just a part of my character. I can't change that. That's how I was raised. My parents raised me like that. I can't change that. That's how I am. Oh, they never taught me how to do it. And we begin to blame others for our own actions. But we'll begin to see that how does God view it? How does God view it? You have a point?
I was going to say, how about blaming Satan?
Satan. That works too. You can blame him. That's okay. All right. Let's go to Matthew 12, verse 36. I like the point. Matthew 12, verse 36. And if someone can read it loudly with passion, I would really appreciate that. Or I'm going to have to read it myself. Matthew 12, verse 36. But I tell you that men will have to give account on the day of judgment for every careless word they have spoken. You yourself will stand before God by yourself. Let's read Romans 14 real quick. Romans 14 verse 12. This will just add to this.
So then each of us shall give account of himself to God.
Then each of us will give account of ourselves before God. So think about this. You're on the day of judgment. And all it is, it's you and God. No one else. And God will ask you, why did you do that, Sam? Why did you hit Becky that day? And I'll say, God, I couldn't help it. God, Becky was really mean to me. And God will say, well, what did I command you? And I'll say, God, you commanded me to love my enemy as I love myself. And then God will make note. He'll say, okay, I'll make note of Becky over here to the side. But right now, I'm asking you, Sam, why did you do that? You didn't have to respond to Becky like you did. Your choice is your choice, irregardless of the people around you. You can blame them, but on the day of judgment, you will have to give account for it. Remember that today. Remember that you will have to give account for it. So what? So what does that mean for you? What does that mean for you? You yourself must take on this burden. I am my own greatest, what's the word? Teacher. I am my own greatest teacher. Yes, I am my own greatest teacher. I am my own greatest pastor. I am the one who controls me. I must live a good life for God's sake, because that is the only thing that is gauged on the day of judgment. You yourself. Don't look to those around you, okay? And it sounds hard. It sounds like it's a tough thing to do. But we got to learn to start taking the burden on ourselves. If you do something wrong, I did it. It's not my character. It's not the way my brain works. I did the wrong. I will be better today because I can. So we're going to look at an example of this. Daniel. Daniel was a beautiful example of a man who had every excuse he could make. Yet he stayed strong. He stayed strong. Let's go to Daniel 1, verse 8 to 14. And I'm going to read it for us if y'all don't mind. But y'all can turn to it still. Daniel 1, verse 8 to 14. Let me turn to it real quick. Daniel 1, 8 to 14. It says, But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. And he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Now God had caused the official to show favor and sympathy to Daniel. But the official said to Daniel, I'm afraid of my lord the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would have my head because of you. Daniel then said to the guard, whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, and Mishael, please test your servant for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. So we see a man, Daniel. Daniel had every right to make an excuse. He wasn't where he grew up. His parents weren't around him. Everything, we hear this all the time. He wasn't in the right setting, and he had the right to make an excuse. More than that, he could have also said to God, God, you rejected me, you let me be taken by the Babylonians. But what does Daniel do instead? He takes some responsibility for himself, and he says, I will stay strong. So a question I'm going to ask you for today, how do you know if you're taking responsibility for yourself in your pursuit of God? How do you know if I, Sam Thomas, am I taking responsibility for myself in my pursuit of God? So I have 3 reasons. I'll get to the 3 reasons and I'll be done for the night. First things, the little things matter, okay? So we look at our spiritual life. There's a lot of components to a spiritual life. There's prayer, there's Bible reading, coming to church, living a holy life, evangelizing to others. But what does Daniel add to his particular Christian walk? What he eats. What he eats, which we might think that has nothing to do with my Christian walk. Daniel says that is going to be important in my Christian walk. And one of the things you realize that people who take responsibility for themselves in the pursuit of God is that the little things in life matter. The way they think matters. The way they act towards others matter. The words that they say matter. So you have to start, too many people are just like, who cares about that? And we come up with all this logic. You know, Paul even said, is it the food that makes us unholy? No, it's the words that come out of our heart. So we can logic to ourselves, oh, food doesn't matter. Oh, our words don't matter. But what does Daniel do? He says, even the littlest thing I will make important. The food that I eat matters. And, yes, I think that's it. The little things do matter. Okay, that takes care of that point. The second point, daily commitment. I think this is one of the hardest things for us as Christians, daily commitment. You know, what does Daniel do? He does this for how many days? 10 days. You know, we read that, and we just read 10 days. We're reading the story, and we just see he gets through it 10 days. But if you think about it, it's a tough test. You know, you're eating. First day, you're motivated towards your goal. Like, you want to take responsibility, you're motivated. You eat your celery, you drink your water, and you're strong. And then the next day comes, you know, the celery doesn't taste as good, and the water doesn't go down as smoothly. And you look over, and you see the people around you, they have their nice steak, and they're drinking their nice Coke, and they have a big piece of cake with them. And you think to yourself, goodness, does this really even matter? And you start to logic to yourself, does this matter? But what does Daniel do? The second day, the third day, the fourth day, he continues on his commitment. Daily commitment is an important thing. Too many times when things get hard, we just quit. And that's why we'll never get anywhere in our spiritual walks. Make a commitment, hold to it every morning. Hold to it like Daniel did. It might not be easy. It might be easy to look, you might look around and you see, oh my goodness, they look like they're having so much fun. But you realize what's more important is what we need to hold on to. Daily commitment is the most important thing. So we have the little things matter. The little things matter. Daily commitment is important. And finally, my last point is that the temporary was not as important as the things of God. You know, it's very easy when we look around us, it doesn't feel good to read our Bible. We don't get any immediate results right then. But the seed you plant today will be the fruit that you bear tomorrow. It might not feel nice to love your enemy today, but the seed you plant today will be your fruit tomorrow. And Daniel realized that. He held on to his principles because the things of God were more important to him than the temporary pleasure. The temporary pleasure may last for a moment, but you'll have to live with it for the rest of your life. Let me tell you this today, hold on to the things that are important, not to the temporary. And Daniel was able to. So what do we notice? Daniel's example, do I have individual responsibility for myself? 3 things will let you know the little things in your life matter. What I do, what I say. You have a daily commitment. It's not something that you just do and you just daily you decide. It's a daily commitment. And number 3, the temporary things don't matter to you as much as the internal. And I think that should be it. Ooh, and I got a good quote that I love. It's a Japanese attitude for work. And I think one of the reasons sometimes we fail in this individual responsibility is that we don't believe in ourselves. So let me give you a good quote right here, okay? If one can do it, I can do it. If someone in the world can be holy, I can be holy. If someone in the church can speak a good message, I can do it too. You are more capable than you think. And I love the next part. If no one can do it, I must be the one who does it. We say to ourselves, no one can be holy. You'll be the one to show them, from this day on, I will be holy. Take on this burden to yourself of individual responsibility for your walk with God. And that's the only way you'll get anywhere with your walk with pursuing God. And like I normally like to do, I like to end off with a song. So Tim, you come up. I like to do my favorite song. This is my favorite song of all time because it keeps it simple. And it's seek ye first the kingdom of God. You know, it tells me, seek God's kingdom first and everything else will be added unto you. So I'll start with it. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness,